皆さん、こんにちは、ケイケさんです。今回は外国人の日本のレビューチェックします。It's the very famous YouTuber PewDiePie. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him before, but he's a very popular YouTuber in the West. And he recently moved to Japan a couple years ago. But this video in particular got my attention because I don't know if I mentioned it to you guys, but I've been living in Japan for 5 years. So I'm kind of curious to see what he thinks about Japan after living here for 1 year. By the way, if you haven't heard yet, I started a new channel, and this channel will be specific for only She in the Spot videos. So if you're interested in that, please consider checking that out. The link to that will be in the description box. But with that being said, 行きましょう. Let's go.
チャンネル登録してね。
Japan review. Japan review.
Hi.
It's been a year since I moved to Japan, and I thought it made sense to finally rate Japan. I will talk about the things I like and the things I don't like, which seems to be the only two options available if you have opinions about this country. Ah, Nihon daisuki. It's so sugoi.
It's so sugoi.
You know, Japan is really bad.
すごいでいいけど。
Okay, I will list one good thing and bad thing, and I will not hold back.
I mean, I do
There's
talk
no
like
trash
that as
bins.
well. Mixing
Where am
English,
I gonna put my
Japanese.
trash? I have to put it in my pocket? Oh. There's always these generic things that you hear, or yes,
I think I
when
already
you
missed the
visit,
first
it's
part.
kind of weird, but then you realize it's not a big deal. Anyway, let's start off with number one reason I like Japan.
Okay, wait,
It
we're
feels
starting
like
now.
A giant playground. No, I don't mean in the Logan Paul kind of sense of doing whatever the hell you want.
Nah, konohito.
But rather, there's infinite things, or at least it feels like, to explore and experience. And I've been here a year now, and I don't think I'm gonna get bored anytime soon. Although I am having a child, so I don't know how much more I have time to experience. But it really feels like a whole new world, and if you visited, you can probably relate to it. And I'm glad that even a year in, it still feels incredibly fresh. And I even would say that you realize that the best part of Japan aren't the touristy places, kind of obviously, but there's so many areas that I found that I really enjoy visiting. And this is probably more specific to me, but you know, Tokyo is very busy, and so many times I just catch myself surrounded by what feels like hundreds of people, and they have no idea who I am. Everyone is just doing their own thing, and that feels so fucking good.
That is
No
true.
one's staring at me. No one's following me. No one's being weird. You guys are weird. I'm just kidding. I just love the feeling of being able to exist in public and not worrying about what everyone else is doing. Like I said this before, but I genuinely enjoy talking to fans, or when people approach me, it always makes me happy, but it can be kind of frustrating to always wanting to just do your own thing and always be, you know? So yeah, let's move on to the bad things of Japan. Number one reason Japan is bad. It's kind of a heavy subject, and I haven't seen anyone else really talk about it. It's not brought up very often, at least. And that is cones. There's too many cones in Japan. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. They're everywhere. They say, oh, Japan has so many vending machines. There's like 5 per 1 person. No, the opposite. There's more cones than people. Why are there so many cones? I need to know. We got the tall ones. We got the small ones. We got the funny ones. The cute ones. The sexy ones. I do like those. I just don't understand. Did whoever placed these cones think I'm just gonna barge through? Oh, thank God there's cones here. Otherwise, I had no idea what I was going to do.
Wakaru.
And I realized the cone history of Japan stretches centuries, okay? If you played Animal Crossing, sometimes, it's a Japanese game, so sometimes you get these items, right? And you're like, oh, that's kind of weird. I don't know exactly what that is, but it's probably something Japanese. And then you get the bamboo thing, and you're like, what the hell is that? What am I even gonna do with that? And then you see it in real life here in Japan, and you're like, holy shit, it's a cone. That's a cone.
It's
They're
real.
everywhere. I feel like they are following me. I'm glad I was able to talk about this. I'm, for one, am willing to call out Japan. Knock it off, man. No more cones. There's enough cones. All right, reason number 2, I like Japan. Yay. When we first announced that we were gonna move to Japan, there was so many people just saying how bad Japan is. Actually, did you know Japan is really bad? Did you know this? I have to list all these reasons now because everyone is like, thing, and then thing Japan. So I have to tell them, no, it's actually But one thing in particular that people said was that old people really don't like foreigners. They hate them. So when I was gonna stop by to say hi to our neighbors, who's a little older, at least some of them, I was terrified. I heard all these stories, you know? What are they gonna do to us? So I had my guard up, ready for the worst, and I was met with nothing but kindness and welcoming, and I felt like a total dick for having these preconceived ideas, thanks to other people. And just a side comment, like, yes, there are definitely probably people that don't like foreigners and all that stuff, but I realized I should let my own experiences dictate how I feel about certain things. Maybe that's just ignoring a problem, I don't know. It just feels like it's a bad way to approach life if you always have a negative expectation. You
it's
know?
better to have your own experience.
People may smile back. Smile back! Thank you. Sometimes they don't, and that's okay.
I actually try that sometimes
my point being,
too,
Japanese
when I'm
people
walking outside.
Are very, in my
I try
own
to
experience,
smile to other people.
Are very nice and friendly.
Sometimes
the majority
they don't
at
smile
least.
back.
And yes, even to foreigners. I feel like they are especially nice to foreigners because they think we're like a kid lost at Disneyland or something. I didn't need you to walk me for half an hour to the specific place I was going, but thank you. I appreciate it. A lot of times I go bouldering alone and there's always other groups of people being supportive and yelling like, "Ganbatte!" Like, go, you can do it. I love it. I think it's great. You know, or if you're small talking with people, people genuinely want to communicate with you, and I love having those moments. But of course, there's times where people are like, "Oh, you're a foreigner, I don't feel like even trying." Which I get, it's fine. Speaking of which, reason I don't like Japan number 2. The language. I have lived here for a year, and I'm not fluent in Japanese. I am dumb. I am very dumb. I remember the moment we moved here, I had studied some Japanese and I was like, let's test out this knowledge that I have acquired. Let's go. I'm just gonna come in. It's gonna be daijoubu. And you enter a store for the first time and they're like, Fukuro goryou desu ka? Huh? What? Ikkabarai desu ka?
Wakaru.
What? Oshiharai hoho erabi kudasai. Oh, what? The classic, the most common experiences that you have aren't necessarily what you're taught in the.
He likes to go to the
I know.
I
think
can
that's
tell
the same
just
for
from
anyone
that.
learning a language for the first time. But don't even get me started on the kanji, man. What the fuck is this? I feel like Japanese is such a hard language, obviously. But I don't think people realize how hard it is, at least me personally, because the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know shit. For English speakers, Japanese is considered one of the most difficult languages, and because it's just so different. I listed it as bad because that was my first kind of experience with it coming here. But the more I interact with people, the more it feels like I'm unlocking new skills, you know? Oh, I made a phone call for the first time. Oh, I could ask someone over the phone. I know, big deal, but it's like, oh, I can actually do that. Or even just having a small, tiniest, shittiest conversation with a stranger. It's still something and it feels good. You start to all of a sudden understand, you know, a movie. If you're watching, oh, I understand actually what's going on here. Or I can play games and kind of get what they're saying. I have to look up words, obviously, but to me, all those new experiences that it unlocks to me is very rewarding. Even though it's such a challenge, I would actually now say it's a good thing. Ha! I played it on its head. It was a good thing all along. But I obviously have a long fucking way to go. And I don't think it would ever stop. Reason number 3, I like Japan. This has nothing to do with Japan to say. It's more related to me taking a more relaxed approach to YouTube. Or both. For my entire 20s, I did nothing but YouTube. That was my life. And that's okay. But I also think it was a little toxic, probably. You know, if I wasn't making videos, I sure as hell was thinking about making videos. I uploaded videos during our honeymoon. And it feels really good to finally be free from it, you know? And I can discover other things in life. There are other things in life. New hobbies and interests that I've always wanted to do. I can do and have so much fun with it. Surfing, I know I would love for the longest time, and I finally get to do it. And it's so fucking amazing. I love learning new things. Anything that isn't necessarily connected to all of this on the internet. And that is something I'm very, very grateful that I discovered. So yeah, it's not really Japan. I could have done that anywhere.
I like
but
how
it's
he's playing the
largely why I
Japanese
enjoyed so much here.
music.
Reason
in
I
the
don't like
back
Japan
while
number
he's
3. This is
talking about
probably the
this.
most trickiest one, and it's
like
the rules.
relaxing.
What are the rules?
Japan has so many rules, and it's a bit conflicting for me to complain about because
dude.
a lot of the best stuff about Japan, not the best stuff, but a lot of the reasons why Japan works so well is because of the rules. You know, the trains are always on time. Things just work in general. It's hard to explain. The streets are clean. People aren't loud in public, and so on. And these are sort of societal rules that make it happen, more or less. But sometimes there are rules that just don't make any sense. And I have no problem following rules as long as I understand the reason for it, you know? Don't talk on the phone on the train because it's generally annoying when other people do that to you. A lot of it is just be thoughtful of other people. It's not just about you. And that just makes it more pleasant for everyone. But one rule especially, which I talked about before, is the fact that because of COVID, I'm not allowed to be in the delivery room for our baby for more than 2 hours. That's because of COVID rules. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I tell people about this, like family and friends, and they're always like, well, why don't you just ask them? Or like, why don't you talk to them? I'm sure you can, there's gotta be some way. And it's like, no, it's Japan, okay? There are rules and people follow the rules, for better or worse, you know? So the more time I spend here, the more time I encounter these sort of rules that, in my head at least, don't make sense. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm above it, or like, oh, I don't get it, so therefore I'm above it. But it's still really frustrating, I think. Because yeah, rules exist for a reason, and even though the reason might not be obvious to you, they are usually there for some sort of practicality. I don't know. I'm just trying. I don't get it, man. So, lastly, the reason I like Japan. I feel like there should be a word for it. It's more of a feeling than anything, and it's could be happening at any point during the day. Maybe I'm riding a bicycle, it's sunny outside and surrounded by trees, and it's just pleasant in general. A warm wind hits your face, and you just sort of have that moment where it feels just so amazing. It feels like you're living a dream. It could be just walking my dogs, and then out in the distance, everything is clear, and you see Mount Fuji popping out. You know, I'm surfing and the sun is setting and it's turning the whole ocean to look pink. And it's just one of those moments where you feel like I'm living in a dream. I just feel like, how is this real? I don't even believe it myself. And I catch myself a lot in those kind of moments living here. And it's just a wonderful thing. Happy days. I feel really silly talking about it because it's not like these things don't exist anywhere for anyone. It's not like, oh, Japan, But moving here, I feel like I definitely get those moments more often. It's not like I wasn't happy in UK or wherever, but I think just in general, it has changed me and my priorities and as a person to the better in a weird way. And I realize a lot of it is also very specific to me and my circumstance. I have the opportunity to not work as much anymore, and I have the opportunity to have a lot of freedom and not engage in a lot of the bad parts of the tough work ethic in Japan, for example. And so I think me specifically feeling like I don't get recognized, so that's also a reason I really enjoy here. A lot of the reasons I enjoy Japan is very specific to me, at least, and people like Japan for different reasons, obviously. I'm not surprised or necessarily think people are wrong to trying to dispel Japan from being this holy mecca or anything like that, but I think ultimately it's an amazing place to visit. You should definitely do it. But I also think not everyone's going to enjoy living here. That's my big asterisk, basically. I feel like if you're content as a person, you should be able to be happy where you live. At least for me, for example, living in UK, I was just as happy as well. But like I said, catch myself in these happy moments more often here, which I'm very grateful for. So yeah, I hope that sort of summarizes it. I would put Japan S tier.
S tier. Pretty good rating, I think. All right. So there's some things that I would like to say about this video. Before I say anything else, I think his last rating as an S tier, really good. Really good rating right there. Honestly, I felt that a lot of his points were very fair. Some of them were a little bit kind of like, for example, when he mentioned about the language and the rules and such, Like those kinds of things are inescapable. You can't really escape them. You want to be in Japan, so not just be, but live in Japan. So you're gonna have to learn the language if you want to communicate and have more better life here. And the rules as well, the rules are the reason Japan is the way it is. And of course, he did try to touch up on it and kind of say, I understand why it's like this and that, but still, kind of have to take it a little bit more, not really serious, but think about it a little bit more. Especially if you're going to live here just like short term, then maybe learning Japanese isn't for you. Because I've worked with foreigners before who were here for just 2 years or even 1 year, and then they just move back to their own country for their own reasons. But something that really stood out to me that he mentioned is that, Japan isn't for everybody. There are things in Japan, and it's not just Japan, but anywhere in the world, that there are things you don't like, and maybe those things that you don't like make you want to move somewhere else or have a different experience. Because, for example, in my case, I'm in Japan because I don't like living in America. There is only one thing that I like about America, and that is my family. That is the only reason why I would ever go back to America. But other than that, there is no other reason. But like I said, I thought he made a lot of fair points. Of course, some stuff was kind of like, But overall, I really like how he rated Japan. But please like, comment, and subscribe if you like this video. And also let me know what you thought about the video and his opinions. And also, let me know if you would like for me to do a video similar to this. Maybe like a 5-year Japan review or something. Or maybe just talk about the things that I like about Japan after living here for 5 years. And with that being said, みんな見てくれてくださいましたら、またね。